4 to 6% degrees increase on pre-industrial standards. All the predictions of that are chaotic. They are horrific. And you know, for those of you with children who are young, for me with grandchildren who will be in their 40s in 2050, I feel an urgency every morning when I wake up about why don't we get real about this? And I'm very glad that South Africa helped with that conference in Durban, but it wasn't enough.
And I think
is this not similar to what is happening to us right now? We have so many squatter camps which are happening, and overnight you find that the squatter camp is just burnt out because one house, the lamp fell or something, and everything is just destroyed. But there is no improvement. It was happening so many years ago. It's still happening today. People's things are destroyed. Children can't go to school or anything because of the fire.
And you know, if you go back to migration in Africa in particular, which is probably the continent that will be the hardest hit by climate change. When I was in Kenya and I went to visit women around the villages of Lake Turkana, the biggest inland sea. The lake is drying up, the salinity is increasing, the fish are dying, the droughts are prolonged, the grazing lands are gone. So people are starving to death. And when they're taking the cattle to go and find new grazing lands, they're ending up with wars. So we're going to have wars around grazing land, around water. And what's happening? And when you listen to the women there, they say, the one thing we want our child to do is go to the city. So in a place like Kenya, you're going to have, in the next 10 years, from 60% of the people living in rural areas to 40% living in rural areas. So you're having huge growing urban slums. And the issues of food security, of malnutrition, of infant mortality are skyrocketing in the urban areas. And that's where the rights of the woman are most fundamentally being impinged on. You know, and you have some experience of meeting women like that. How should we respond? Because it doesn't seem like we have an answer to this.
Well, you and I are both on a lead group now on food and nutrition, so we're working together on that. But I agree with you, and something that was brought home to me was going to Somalia it is estimated double by 2050. We need also to encourage that we know what to do to encourage the opportunity of women to space their children. That there is education, especially of the girl child, an education through secondary level, and on reproductive health and family planning, and also access to good health systems. And what I'm hearing in the climate debate is those awful words from the outside coming in again, population control. But actually, instead of population control, we can reinforce what needs to be done, which is heavy emphasis on education, particularly of girls, and right up through secondary school, and skills to be independent and be able to say no and determine what they want to do and space their children, and also reduce maternal and child mortality. I'll finish again with, you said, you know, I must have had a chance to talk. I spoke a lot to those women that I met in Somalia, and then I went to the Dadaab camp in Kenya, where more than 100,000 people, it's now 400,000, it was well over 100,000 when I was there, were in that camp. And every single woman that I spoke to had at least 6 children. Every single one, some had 7 or 8. And so they had no choice. They would have taken a choice. But part of the reason why they had so many children was that in the hope that 1 or 2 would survive, which is a terrible situation for any mother. In the hope that, you know, so we have a lot to address. It's again why I echo what you said, you know, Emma. You know, women in particular, young women, women who have access to professions, they should not be silenced, should have their voices heard, because we have to change the way things are in so many different ways.
Yes, I have an experience about if women speak out, things do happen. In the 70s, when I was being haunted by the police every time, I think it was during the time of T.T. Mashinini. Every morning there were police coming to my place, 4 a.m. and Leah Tutu, who we seldom speak about, organized women in Soweto and they went to Morocco police station to go and say, without my knowledge, to go and say to the police, we want this to come to an end, the thing of going to be visiting and torturing Emma Mashinini at her home. And they said to her, why doesn't she leave the country? And then, well, I would never leave my country. But it really did subside. It stopped. So it means when we challenge things as women, things do happen.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to say another nice thing now. Because nowadays when I ask activists, why don't you do something? They say we have no budget. We have no money to have food or to book a hotel, Ma. I think one day we'll have a session here about how we stood outside the factory to collect the money.
Yes, yes. And how I went and collected money, and taxis at night would refuse to take me because they were whites-only taxis. And I'll get onto a cart with them, Baula, and go and sleep somewhere. Yes, yes, yeah.
That's a separate session. So I want to turn over especially to younger people here, because this is also a bit of an intergenerational conversation, and give you young people a chance to interact with the wisdom of this generation, but also be strong about what we've done wrong. We've done a lot of wrong things. I can say, certainly having been in the first government here, I can give you an hour's lecture about what I can draw. And I do apologize for that. But that's why I'm here. So can we take one at the back there, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Stop now, come on.
No, I'm identifying. No, we're taking 2 at a time. So I'm just saying, those that put up your hands, remember who you all are. So we'll start here.
Firstly, just to say what an inspiration you both are to us as a sort of hopefully a new generation. But I think I work extensively in the world of adoption and crisis pregnancy and child abandonment. And one of the biggest challenges that I face is people telling me that you don't understand because this is not your culture. And when I address this with young women who are facing things like crisis pregnancy and a situation where they are forced into having sexual relations that they don't necessarily want, they're often raped, and they end up with a crisis pregnancy, and you get things like abandonment and so on. I say to them, what's going on with this issue of culture? And the question they often say to me is, just because it's historic doesn't mean it's part of my culture. But it's really difficult to deal with something when people just turn around and say, it's my culture, you don't understand.
Can I take the next question as well?
Hi, my name is Khotazin Tlengetwa. I work with young women, specifically between the ages of 16 and about 21, I can say, specifically in the township, because I was born and bred in Soweto. And what I'm finding a lot over there, and what I think is very challenging, is the actual mindset. Things that you and I can sit here and look upon and say, but how could they think like that? Or, but for me, it's a logical choice. But when I look at the norm that is in my township, for example, me being a young woman and being beaten up by my boyfriend is a norm. It's something I will go and tell my friends about. And it's nothing that's regarded as something that is a crisis, quote unquote. How do you think, is the best way? How can we get into the psyche and kind of change the psyche within young women so that we can then empower that action and speaking out?
So let's we take 2 at a time.
Okay, you want to go first?
Yes, I will come in with the thing of culture. I think anything you say, it will be about culture. My culture was not to keep quiet when another person is oppressed.
Well, if I can kind of build on that, because that is culture. And what you were describing, both of you, is not, in my judgment, worthy of being described as culture. It is traditional practices. And very often we add the word harmful traditional practices, and we separate it from culture. Slavery was a harmful practice. Apartheid was a harmful practice. We now have, genital cutting. We have female child marriage, which the elders are very engaged on. We meet, in Ethiopia and in India, we were in places where the average marriage age was 12. And people tried to say culture. We said, no, And Graça Machel, no, do not use that word culture there. This is a harmful traditional practice. You know, it may help, I mean, you know, you have to work on the way you work, but it is helpful to know that this is not actually worthy of being called culture. And it's something that must be changed because it is a harmful practice, a harmful traditional practice. And then you can work on it, because harmful traditional practices have been tackled over centuries in different contexts. So that would be my sense of it.
There's two at the back that I pointed. One. You all should know who you are.
My name is Noma. I have 2 teenage daughters, and I've learned a lot from them and their views. And I've noticed that young women today have a global view of various issues and various problems. And I'm just wondering, isn't it possible to look at this multifaceted problem that leads to women being poor? And what can we not focus it and look at it from a continental and a regional view, and also get world support and bring in young women or young girls who actually have a global view, to actually have a big input in how they think the world should be like in the future.
And there's one else at the back. Yes.
I just wanted to elevate to what she says as well, in a different perspective, because my thing is, in today's world, it's very important for to succeed. It's the culture of today's. You want to succeed. You want to have more. You want to have. You want to have big houses. You want to have big cars. That's how success is defined. And I just feel that with our youngsters, is it possible to teach them to be I don't know how to put it this, but to be more involved in a more humanity, I don't know if
yes, that's clear. Okay.
The volume is too soft for me.
Very.
Okay, I'll try, and maybe we can get a mic. Is there a roaming mic? Anyway, I'll answer the 2 questions. First of all, I like the idea that your 2 daughters are linked with global views on issues, because I think this is one of the strengths of the younger generation, linked to social media with friends all over the world. It's really very positive. And I did in my talk, as part of the Mandela lecture, when I was getting to the discussion about citizenship and common purpose, I pointed out that the good news is that we've never had so many tools to address some of the issues we've been talking about. And those tools are tools of changing people from just receiving knowledge to actually contributing to what we know, contributing data and fact-checking. And the example that I gave, because I think it's a good example, then I'm an elder. I don't know social media as well as some of you do. We elders are slow with the buttons. But I learned about a platform which started in Kenya, Ushahidi. And it was a platform started by some Kenyan bloggers because they were very worried about the violence just after the election. And they wanted to have a means of tracking where that violence was occurring and trying to address it. So they wanted to repurpose Google Maps covering Kenya. And it became a software that could apply to tracking disease, that it could apply to all kinds of crises. And the example that I used, because it's become global, the example I used is that a local authority in my own country, Ireland, is using Ushahidi to track potholes in their area. And I'm given to understand there are quite a lot of potholes in South Africa. So if you can track potholes, you can track violence, you can track the schools where the teachers don't turn up, you can track the police who stop you and improperly want to bribe before they'll let you on your way. And you can have this data collected and you make visible some of the things. But that's one aspect. I think also there's a great shared sense globally in the women's movement. I mean, I'm lucky enough to interact with a lot of women in different countries. And women are disproportionately represented in poverty and disproportionately are affected by violence. These things have not changed. Domestic violence is still a very real problem. So there can be an increasing sisterhood of identity, but it needs people to get engaged. So I hope that your two daughters will, get engaged because they have the means to now, particularly with social media, as I said.